In the world of football, there are players, and then there are legends. Didier Drogba, the Ivorian powerhouse, falls into the latter category. Known for his indomitable spirit, unrivaled physicality, and uncanny ability to deliver in the most crucial moments, Drogba will be remembered as arguably the greatest African player of all time. In his heydays, he was as tough as they came. He could comfortably receive a long ball on his chest while holding off two defenders, spin them around, and beautifully stick the ball into the back of the net. And he never failed to deliver on the big stage, scoring 10 goals in 10 finals, and by the time he retired, his name had been rightfully inked into the history books as one of the most clutch footballers the modern game has ever seen. And if you think his career was incredible, wait until you hear about his journey to the top. Join us as we delve into the captivating journey of a footballing icon. Drogba's journey into footballing stardom was anything but conventional. He was born at a time when the country was ravaged by civil unrest and the economy was on its knees, which meant his path was filled with fraught and challenges. His parents could not afford to fly the whole family to France for greener pastures, so they decided to send a young Drogba to France to live with his uncle. Despite his uncle's efforts to make Didier happy, the young boy really struggled to adjust and kept begging to be allowed to fly back home. Reluctantly, they agreed. The country was still struggling and in economic turmoil, and within 3 years of Drogba's return, both parents had lost their jobs. Once again, they turned to Drogba's uncle, Goba, who begrudgingly invited Drogba back to France. The first thing that he did was changing Drogba's position from right back, yeah, you heard it right, to a striker. He told him that people only care about strikers. You need to play up front. He then connected him to Levallois SP, a youth football club. It's here that Drogba began to show his potential. His progress was, however, halted after he picked a serious injury, meaning the bigger teams that had started taking note of him forgot about him entirely. Le Mans, however, still showed interest in the Ivorian and offered to sign him after his recovery in 2002. It wasn't all smooth sailing though. He picked up 3 serious injuries in his first 2 years with the club, leaving many to question as to whether he could actually make it in the professional game. But then, something happened. Le Mans were not willing to let Drogba leave, and they offered him his first professional contract. Of course, he quickly accepted it before they changed their minds. The contract meant he was now a professional footballer. Despite scoring 7 goals in his first season, he picked yet another serious injury, which kept him out the entirety of the preseason of the following season. His third season wasn't great either, but Le Mans was surprised when Guingamp bid for him in the winter. He had in total scored 12 goals for Le Mans, so they quickly sanctioned the sale and allowed the then 23-year-old to leave. He was now playing in the French top tier. He was unproven, coming from the second tier. He left everyone surprised when he first trained with the new Guingamp teammates. No one expected him to be that good. Despite starting well, his injuries did not make it easy for him. He spent the beginning of the 2002 to 2003 season dealing with a foot injury, but luckily a break in the schedule gave the club's training and medical staff time to pick out his issues. He came back stronger. His first full season with the club was one to remember. The towering striker scored a total of 21 goals in 39 matches and finished 3rd in the League One scoring charts, propelling the club to a 7th place finish, their best ever. At 25, he had finally arrived. He had, at this point, become a regular for the Ivorian national team and one of the most feared strikers in France. It was no surprise when Marseille came calling and paid a cool 6 million euros for a player Guingamp had paid 150,000 euros to acquire his services. With the cash in hand, Drogba got his wish of moving to a bigger club. He needed it, as time was not on his side and he needed to play at the highest level possible. Marseille were playing in the Champions League, and this provided Drogba with a chance to show the whole of Europe what he was made of. And he took his chance as well. He announced himself on the big stage by scoring against all the 3 teams that were in their group. Sadly though, Marseille had to drop into the UEFA Cup, having finished 3rd in the group. He was still playing in Europe anyway, and he continued with his form in UEFA's second-tier club competition. Here, he scored 6 goals in 6 games, single-handedly dragging his team to the final. Along the way, he scored braces against Liverpool and Newcastle, but they fell in the last huddle when the goalkeeper Fabien Bathers was sent off while giving a penalty in the final. They lost, but Drogba had proven himself in Europe, and one man whom he faced in group stages had noticed him. That man is none other than Jose Mourinho. Just like Drogba, Mourinho was having his breakthrough season in Europe while at the helm of FC Porto, leading them all the way to Champions League victory. Roman Abramovich then snapped him up as he sought for a manager who could lead his expensively assembled Chelsea team. Mourinho only wanted one man to lead his attack, Didier Drogba. And when he mentioned it to Abramovich, the Russian billionaire was surprised. Who is this Drogba? Where does he even play and what has he achieved? Mourinho only had one answer. Mr. Abramovich, pay and don't speak. Abramovich did, and the following month, Drogba left Marseille for Chelsea. He left the French club as a cult hero, having scored 32 goals in his only season at the club. He also won Ligue 1 Player of the Year and Goal of the Year awards. You know you did something special when fans chant your name and ask the club to do everything to bring you back. That's what Marseille fans did in 2008. 4 years into Drogba's Chelsea career, the fans raised funds hoping to foot a transfer fee that might lure him back. At Chelsea, he got off to an instant perfect start, but despite helping Chelsea win the league in his first 2 seasons and scoring an extra time goal to help Chelsea win the Carling Cup against Liverpool, he had not truly captured Chelsea supporters' hearts, and Abramovich was never convinced of the Ivorian's talents. That's why he brought in Ballon d'Or winner Andrei Shevchenko to rival him. He had scored 32 goals in his first 2 seasons at Chelsea, so he obviously felt betrayed when the club brought in the Ukrainian and he wanted to leave. After getting the news of Shevchenko's signing, he pulled out of Ivory Coast World Cup training camp to try to get a move elsewhere, but Mourinho sat him down and assured him that he was his key man. He decided to stay. That following season, Drogba became a completely different beast. He scored like a man possessed. He banged in 33 goals in all competitions and cemented his scoring legacy by scoring 2 goals in the Carling Cup final victory against Arsenal and the winner of the FA Cup final. Perhaps the most memorable was that stunning chest turn and bang winner against Liverpool. He had endeared himself to Blues supporters around the globe. Shevchenko managed just 14 in that season. Drogba had overcome his inferiority complex. He was now the main man, and it remained so even after Mourinho got sacked. It never mattered which other strikers Abramovich brought in. Drogba was always delivering for Chelsea, both at home and in Europe. There were numerous ups and downs, but mainly the former. He scored the Blues' only goal against Tottenham in the Carabao Cup final and the winning semi-final goal against Liverpool in the Champions League to set up a Chelsea-Man United final, a match the Blues lost on penalties. The 2009-10 season will, however, remain perhaps his best season at Chelsea. At 32, he was approaching the twilight of his career, but the Ivorians scored an astonishing 37 goals in 44 matches as the Blues lifted the Premier League title and the FA Cup under Carlo Ancelotti. The following season was poor for the club, and in January, Abramovich sort of started a rebuild, bringing in Fernando Torres, who was to replace Drogba. At the time, Torres was exceptionally good, and many thought that it was the end of the Ivorians' time at the bridge. Even Drogba resigned to his fate. He knew that he would sit on the bench, but that was not the case. Torres struggled and he simply couldn't score. The same continued into the following 2011-12 season, and guess who had to be recalled back to the starting lineup? Yeah, Drogba. Midway through the season, the Villas-Boas was given the sack and Roberto Di Matteo was given the chance to steady the ship until the end of the season when they could get in a new manager. And at 34, Drogba's career was soon coming to an end, and maybe it where Drogba scored and assisted the winner in extra time. Next up was Barcelona, and Drogba scored the only goal in the first leg, giving the Blues the advantage ahead of the return leg at Camp Nou. In Spain, the going became tough as Barca took a 2-goal lead and John Terry was sent off. It seemed luck was on them though. Messi missed a penalty, Ramirez scored and Torres finished it off with perhaps his most memorable moment in a blue shirt, and they booked a final spot against Bayern Munich. The Blues were far from favourites once again, and even though they held on for long, Thomas Muller managed to break the Blues' hearts late on, and it seemed as though that would be the end. But Drogba had other plans. He scored in the match's dying moments to force the match into extra time. This was arguably the most important goal of his career. Petr Cech saved an iron-robin goal in extra time, and Bastian Schweinsteiger failed to convert in the shootout, and Drogba was there to convert his and Chelsea's last penalty to secure the Champions League for the Blues in what could be his last performance in a Blues shirt, at least at that time. Yes, he went on to play for Shanghai, Galatasaray, and back at Chelsea again, and even winning the Premier League one last time, but that night in Munich, that's when Drogba's story was completed. From the unforgiving and harsh conditions in Ivory Coast, to France's lower leagues, to winning the Champions League, all the hardships clearly moulded him into the legend he became.